Great. And Lloyd, I'm going to jump back to you. I know most pharma companies will acknowledge that that process has been made rarely by working in isolation. And I've had enough interviews with executives from Janssen that I know that partnering is something really important to the company. To advance treatments and to advance the drug discovery process. Are you able to talk about some of the ways that Janssen is working with other stakeholders to advance innovation in this area?
Sure, Ed. I definitely appreciate the question. And Janssen understands that we need to partner with both companies as well as academic institutions to ultimately succeed in our pathway strategy in developing new therapies. I'll give you a couple of examples. One of the ones was just mentioned by I think both Newman and Terence. There was a company called Protagonist Therapeutics, and they had an excellent platform in building small molecule or small peptides, I should say, that there was a technology where we were looking to inhibit IL-23. You heard a lot about IL-23 as our pathway approach, and they had peptides that blocked the receptor to the IL-23 receptor. And together, both Janssen and Protagonist formed a collaboration to develop these peptides that would block the IL-23 receptor, hoping to have efficacy when it was as an oral pill, not just as a biologic like Tremfya. So this is an example where patients who have needle phobia, who don't want to take an injectable biologic, might prefer an oral therapy, and this would have the same type of activity for inflammatory bowel disease, for instance, if a patient was to take an oral medicine. We also have a very active translational science medicine group that has many different collaborations across the globe. If I can just highlight one, we have a very large collaboration, we call it the cartography collaboration with Oxford University, in which we are using multi-omics type of translational science, so genomics, single-cell transcriptomics, proteomics, to really look at our diseases in our three disease areas. So in immunodermatology, the area I lead, in diseases like psoriasis and atopic dermatitis, in GI with inflammatory bowel disease like Crohn's and ulcerative colitis, as well as in rheumatologic diseases. And so we are going to look at a very molecular level with Oxford University at the single cell level and really learn what the cells found in the tissues in these diseases that are actually driving the disease. And that will further inform our pathway analysis, not just in the IL-23 pathway, but in other pathways that drive these diseases, and probably distinguish some, and will also help us understand different patient subsets that might respond better to a certain treatment than another treatment. So I think Janssen is very engaged both in looking for partnerships with other companies to help develop therapies, as well as academic institutions that have the expertise in certain technologies that we would like to leverage together in collaboration.
And one of our listeners just jumped in with a question too. Right now in the clinical space, it seems like AI and machine learning are a very hot topic, and a lot of companies are talking about how it's going to change the future of drug development. I'm still waiting to hear from a lot of companies on what specifically they're doing with it. That seems a little tougher, but someone is asking, are you currently using any AI or machine learning in drug development in this area, either, for the disease or identifying patients that are most likely to benefit from these treatments?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. And in immunodermatology, you would think this is a perfect area to use these types of technologies. One of the areas we've invested in, and this is in a few ways, but another example where we partnered with a company called Visual DX to look at skin images. And they have a whole library of digital skin images of many different skin types from all different races and ethnicities. And we've collaborated with them to use artificial intelligence and machine learning to build algorithms where computers can actually score the severity of many different skin diseases. Ourselves in Janssen, we have an ongoing trial in atopic dermatitis with our lead drug, bermekimab, which targets IL-1 alpha. Another one of our pathway strategies is targeting IL-1 alpha in atopic dermatitis and another disease called hidradenitis suppurativa. But what we built in two types of digital capabilities. One is we're taking high-resolution digital photography and collecting images from the patients in that trial. And again, using these high-resolution images, our digital health and data science folks are analyzing those images, and hopefully either a central investigator group or even a computer can help score the severity of the disease and the response to treatment. So that's one way Janssen is incorporating digital health as well as AI and machine learning into our trials. In that same trial, we are also trying to get a better sense of itch. And itch is a real problem in atopic dermatitis. The patients are constantly scratching, and the itch is so severe it keeps the patients up at night. And many patients have nighttime sleep disturbance, which leads to anxiety and stress and depression and many other problems that the patients suffer from with this disease. So we're partnering with a few companies that have actigraphy devices. It's a wearable device. It looks like a watch that basically measures the nighttime sleep movements of their extremities. And that tells us as an objective how much they're up. And we hope with our therapies that will be reduced. So looking at digital photography, looking at actigraphy, these are things we're doing to really leverage digital health, artificial intelligence, and machine learning.
Perfect. I had another question came in asking about digital devices, and I think you've covered that one very well as well. So thank you for that. And Lloyd, I'm going to stick with you for one more question, and then we'll jump back to Terence. Precision medicine seems to be focused on identifying specific medicines that are a fit for specific diseases or cancers. The pathway approach that you've been discussing today seems to be identifying drugs that can treat multiple diseases. And that leaves me wondering, are these completely different approaches to drug development, or are they in some way actually complementary to each other? Is that something you can touch on?
Sure, Ed. I think they're very much complementary, and what we can learn in one disease can sometimes be translated to another disease. So for instance, Newman spoke in the beginning about the technologies that are now available in immunology. And I spoke briefly about omics technologies. So genomics, looking at the genetic information of patients that's suffering from disease. Transcriptomics, their RNA, and even at the single cell level, what cells are mediating disease, understanding what their transcriptomics, their RNA is actually going to transcribe, and then even looking at proteomics, what proteins are expressed in the diseased tissue. And really looking at these different omics technologies and combining them, we can understand what's driving that disease. And what we may learn, and what was mentioned earlier, as these IL-23 diseases are kind of similar, and some patients do have more than one disease.